You would, because I had a deal done, and then they broke the deal, and they can't do that. They can't do that. So the deal was done, and it's a very dangerous situation because Egypt is not going to be able to live that way. And they'll end up blowing up the dam, and I said it, and I say it loud and clear, they'll blow up that dam, and they have to do something. So whatever you can do to get them, Ethiopia, to do that, they're going to have to, okay? And we've cut off all payment and everything else to Ethiopia. It was terrible. We were all set to sign a deal. It was negotiated for 5 years and longer than that, and they couldn't make the deal, and I got the deal done. And then they're getting ready to sign the deal, and they broke the deal, which is not good. So whatever you could do, Prime Minister, if you could, that would be great, okay? You tell them they got to get it done. And I'm telling Egypt the same thing, by the way, you know, because they could have stopped it. They should have stopped it long before it was started. I said, how do you let it get built and then you say they have a dam, you know? But they had other things on their mind. That was at a time when they were having a minor revolution, to put it mildly. That was a bad time for Egypt, so I guess they had other things on their mind. So you'll work on that, Sudan, and thank you very much.
But how did they got here? What is the Nile? What is the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and why is it a treat to Egypt? The Nile is the largest river in Africa, flowing majorly from Ethiopia and through Khartoum and Cairo into the Mediterranean Sea, and also the longest river in the world, with 6,650 kilometers, or 4,130 miles in total length. It originates from Lake Tana, Ethiopia, which forms the Blue Nile. The Nile has two major tributaries, the White Nile and the Blue Nile. The White Nile is considered to be the headwaters and primary stream of the Nile itself. The Blue Nile, however, is the source of most of the water, containing 80% of the water and the fertile soil. The two rivers meet just north of the Sudanese capital of Khartoum. But there are also other tributaries to the Nile, such as the Yellow Nile at Bar River, Bar El Ghazal, and Sabit River. From these additional tributary rivers, the Atbar River also originates from Ethiopia. In this case, Ethiopia wins the water production by over 86%. And that is why they call Ethiopia the water tower of Africa. Now let's keep the topic between the three countries, Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt. Neither Sudan nor Egypt contribute a drop of water to the Nile, and both of them use 100% of the Nile, where Ethiopia uses 0%. This seems a little weird, but it is the fact. 0%. But how can this happen? Well, this takes us to different treaties that those countries signed long ago during the colonial period. Some of the treaties were signed between the two countries only, which are Sudan and Egypt, without the concern of Ethiopia. And some of them are treaties that were signed by colonial rulers like Britain.
As you can see, Ethiopia was out of the league. And yet, Ethiopia was the water bank of the Nile. And both countries didn't even ask for the mediation of Ethiopia as they scramble the Nile.
They even tried to fool Ethiopia by translating different content agreement and making the Ethiopian emperor to sign on it, and they were so smart, and they successfully fooled the Ethiopians by writing different version of the agreement in English and different version in Amharic. 44% of Ethiopians don't access electricity. They use firewood, charcoal and animal dung to cook their food. And those who got the electricity are not satisfied because power go off and on frequently, because there is major electric shortage every time. So they use mixed cooking method, where they use firewood or charcoal when the power is off and use electric stoves when the power comes. Ethiopians have no electricity to light up their 110 million population. This is where the Great Renaissance Dam comes. This dam is by far the largest dam in Africa, and it can produce up to 6,450 megawatt electric power. And it was funded by the Ethiopian people and the Ethiopian people only. The money was raised by different ways, like by cutting monthly wage of Ethiopians, buying lotteries, using different fundraisers. And it has no loan over any country or any international bank. The benefits of this dam for Ethiopians is simply endless. It can solve the major power problem of their country and the neighboring countries. It helps mothers to stop the traditional and backward way of cooking. It makes drinking clean water possible for the Ethiopians who still depend on flood water. It makes a lot of money for the Ethiopians to cover their debts. It also makes irrigation possible by providing efficient water and blocking their fertile soil from eroding, so that they stop begging for international banks to cover for their food supply. They currently can't secure the food supply for their 110 million population. The use of this dam is just big enough, and there is nothing like it for the Ethiopians. The Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam also helps Sudan, Egypt and other neighboring countries. For example, the Sudanese need this dam because it stops the overflow of the Blue Nile and saves them from the major flood that destroys everything they built every couple of years. It is also really helpful for other African countries because they can have lights too. So how does the American President Donald Trump made such a war-blowing statement, saying Egypt will blow up the dam? And how did Trump made such a statement while America is not even affected by the dam? Well, the cause for Donald Trump to say such a warmongering statement is not simply one but many. The first reason is that he might be brainwashed because the Egyptians was really friendly with him, since Ethiopia refused the mediation of America. The Ethiopians did not attend the last meeting that America prepared on the Nile Usage Treaty. Some say that the reason for Ethiopia's absence was that America was not observing, but instead making decisions which is far from their initial agreement. After that, Ethiopia took the mediation to the African Union, where the water in the dam exists, and the only fair and the right place to negotiate. Because the Nile does not flow to America. It originates from Africa and flows to African countries. This approach made Egypt irritable. The Egyptians were upset because they were going to the Arab Leagues and other leagues where Ethiopia was not even part of. But why does Egypt go to those leagues, where they don't even have the right to pass a decision on the Nile because it is not in their territory? Well, this approach of Egypt remains unsolved. The second reason might be that he got $10 million aid for his voting campaign from the Egyptian banks, as reported by the CNN. The third reason might be that he is mad because he lost the Nobel Peace Prize. Because, as you may remember, the prize was given to the Ethiopian Prime Minister, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, for his great contribution in resolving the no war, no peace treaty between Ethiopia and Eritrea that lasted for nearly 30 years. Donald Trump said that he deserved that prize because he thinks he was resolving the war about to start between Ethiopia and Egypt. He said "I saved two countries" in his speech from the Nobel Prize response.
Doesn't mean a thing. I mean, I'm going to tell you about the Nobel Peace Prize. I'll tell you about that. I made a deal. I saved a country. And I just heard that the head of that country is now getting the Nobel Peace Prize for saving the country. I said, did I have something to do with it? Yeah, but you know, that's the way it is. As long as we know, that's all that matters, okay? That's all. I saved a big war, saved a couple of them.
He also said that the Ethiopians will never see the money that America aids every year unless they agree with the Americans' mediation. This is beyond unfair for the Ethiopians. It is estimated that more than $200 million is the money that America is about to cut. This clearly shows that the Trump administration is clearly siding with the Egyptians. And as we all know, mediation doesn't work this way. You just don't ban money from a country because a country simply can't go with your mediation. It just doesn't work. The Ethiopians and the Egyptians are both lifelong allies with America, and this step of the president can take this long-lived relationship into a big crisis. But either way, this is his personal thinking and not the Americans. Is it even possible to make such a warmongering statement for a president who wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize?
If you would, because I had a deal done, and then they broke the deal, and they can't do that. They can't do that. So the deal was done. And it's a very dangerous situation because Egypt is not going to be able to live that way. And they'll end up blowing up the dam. And I said it, and I say it loud and clear. They'll blow up that dam, and they have to do something. So whatever you can do to get them, Ethiopia, to do that, they're going to have to, okay? And we've cut off all payment and everything else to Ethiopia.
Will the dam affect Egypt? As you can understand, a dam is a structure that pours water out, but not absorb. The only fear of Egypt is that the water flow might decrease, and this might cause a drought in their country. This to happen is very unlikely, because the dam increases the water flow rate by 25%, and decreases flooding by 25% as well, and also decreases water evaporation by 12% as the research result indicates. The relationship between Egypt and Ethiopia. Egypt and Ethiopia were life-born enemies. This was because the Egyptians wanted to take all of the Nile and wanted to conquer the source of the Nile. The Egyptians started a war 2 times, and they were defeated 2 times by the Ethiopians. The first war was the Battle of Gundet, and the second war was the Battle of Gura. In both battles the Ethiopians were undefeated, and they enjoyed their victory twice. The Transcendence team wishes for the 2 countries a peaceful and fair negotiation over Nile water, and we wish a zero-war treaty between the 2 blessed countries. May the Lord bless both countries, and may God punish those who make warmongering statements.